2 sessions a week, no more. And after 90 days, the body changes in ways that daily gym goers spend years chasing, because they misunderstood what actually drives the adaptation. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share for others to benefit. There is a deeply embedded belief in fitness culture that more training sessions produce more results. That the person in the gym 5 or 6 days a week is building a better body than the person who shows up twice. That frequency is the primary variable separating progress from stagnation. That belief is not supported by the research. And for a specific population, people with real lives, real demands on their time and energy, and a body that requires adequate recovery to respond to training stimulus, it is actively counterproductive. What happens to the body when someone commits to 2 well-constructed resistance training sessions per week for 90 consecutive days, without adding more, without succumbing to the pressure of doing extra, reveals something fundamental about how human physiology actually responds to the demand of lifting weights. The results are not modest. They are not a compromise. They are, for many people, the most significant physical transformation they have ever produced, precisely because the conditions finally allowed the biology to complete its work. What happens in the first 30 days? The first month of a twice-weekly lifting program produces changes that have almost nothing to do with muscle tissue itself. And understanding this is critical to understanding why the process works the way it does. In the initial weeks of resistance training, strength increases rapidly. Someone new to lifting or returning after a significant break can add meaningful weight to their lifts within 2 to 3 weeks. This early progress is almost entirely neurological. The muscles themselves have not yet grown significantly. What has changed is the nervous system's ability to recruit existing muscle fibers more completely, more rapidly, and in more coordinated patterns. Motor unit recruitment, the process by which the brain signals muscle fibers to contract, becomes more efficient with practiced movement. Intermuscular coordination improves. The stabilizing muscles that support primary movers develop the activation patterns needed to express force safely and effectively. The body is essentially learning how to use the muscle it already has before it begins building more of it. This neurological phase is why people who understand the process do not become discouraged when visible muscle changes are subtle in the first month. The foundation being built during this period, the neural pathways, the movement patterns, the structural preparation of tendons and ligaments, is what allows the subsequent hypertrophic phase to proceed with both effectiveness and safety. Tendons and ligaments adapt more slowly than muscle tissue. The first 30 days of twice-weekly training, with appropriate recovery between sessions, gives connective tissue the time it needs to strengthen alongside the neuromuscular system rather than being outpaced by it. Twice-weekly training in this phase is not a limitation. It is the appropriate dose for a system that is reorganizing itself at a fundamental level. What shifts between days 30 and 60? Somewhere in the second month, the nature of the adaptation begins to change. The neurological improvements are now largely in place. The body has developed sufficient motor competence to begin expressing genuine hypertrophic stimulus. The mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage that collectively signal the body to synthesize new contractile protein and build new muscle tissue. This is where the recovery mathematics of twice-weekly training become particularly favorable. Muscle protein synthesis, the biological process of building new muscle, is elevated for approximately 48 to 72 hours following a resistance training session. With 2 sessions per week spaced appropriately, each muscle group receives its training stimulus and then has the full recovery window it needs to complete the synthesis process before being loaded again. The signal is sent, the repair and growth process runs to completion, and the next session arrives to send the signal again. Compare this to higher frequency programs where the same muscle group is trained before the previous session's repair cycle has finished. Incomplete recovery does not double the adaptation. It interrupts it. The body cannot simultaneously repair existing micro-damage and build new tissue at maximal efficiency when the next training stressor arrives too soon. The result is a chronic state of partial recovery. manageable for trained athletes with specific recovery infrastructure, but consistently suboptimal for the general population training without those supports. During this second 30-day period, measurable changes in muscle volume begin appearing. Clothes fit differently. The shape of the shoulders, arms, and legs begins shifting visibly. Strength continues climbing, no longer purely neurological, now reflecting genuine increases in the cross-sectional area of muscle tissue. And because twice-weekly sessions have been sustainable without generating excessive fatigue, adherence during this period is high. The habit is established. The sessions are something the body has adapted to anticipate rather than dread. The hormonal environment at 90 days. By the third month, something is happening in the body's internal chemistry that extends far beyond the visible physical changes, and it represents the most significant long-term benefit of sustained resistance training that most people never discuss. Twice-weekly heavy compound lifting, movements that recruit the largest muscle groups across multiple joints simultaneously, such as squats, deadlifts, rows, and presses, produces acute hormonal responses that, when repeated consistently over 90 days, begin reshaping the body's baseline hormonal environment. Testosterone, growth hormone, and IGF-1, the primary anabolic hormones governing muscle maintenance, fat metabolism, bone density, and cellular regeneration, are all upregulated in response to compound resistance training. This effect is well documented and begins occurring from the first session. But the cumulative effect of 90 days of consistent stimulation produces adaptations that persist beyond the acute post-exercise window. A chronically more favorable anabolic hormonal baseline that affects body composition, energy levels, cognitive function, and metabolic rate around the clock, not just in the hours after training. Insulin sensitivity improves significantly over 90 days of resistance training. Skeletal muscle is the body's primary site of glucose disposal, and larger, more metabolically active muscle tissue processes dietary carbohydrates more efficiently, reducing post-meal glucose spikes, moderating insulin demand, and creating an internal environment far less conducive to fat storage. People at the 90-day mark of twice-weekly lifting are not just carrying more muscle. Their metabolism is operating with fundamentally better efficiency than it was 3 months earlier. Resting metabolic rate increases as muscle mass grows because muscle is metabolically expensive tissue to maintain. It burns calories at rest in a way that fat tissue does not. The body that has been training consistently for 90 days is burning more energy while doing nothing than the body that began the process. This is the compound interest of resistance training, a return that continues generating value even on the days no session occurs. Conclusion: 2 sessions a week, 90 days, compound movements, genuine intensity, adequate recovery between. At the end of that period, the body that emerges is not the result of a compromise or a beginner's shortcut. It is the result of a process that respected the biology of adaptation, gave the nervous system time to reorganize, gave connective tissue time to strengthen, gave the hormonal system time to recalibrate, and gave the recovery process the space it needed to actually complete. Start there. Protect the recovery. Execute the sessions with genuine effort. And arrive at day 90 with data in your own body about what that process actually produces. Because for most people, it produces more than they expected. And that changes the entire conversation about what training needs to look like going forward.